Titling this YouTube video as Stretching with Purpose. I see this a lot, and even with the fitness professionals where they're teaching stretching techniques and they're not doing the right types of stretches before they go into a workout or post-workout. And a lot of people don't really understand. We think that like stretching is so good for us that you should just do it as much as you possibly can, whenever you can, when in reality, there is a right and wrong.
Just stretch your way out.
Yeah, right. There is a right and a wrong way to stretch.
And the right time. I mean, stretching, like anything in fitness, is a tool, and you got to use the right tool for the right job. And there are different ways of stretching. Each one of those ways is beneficial for in particular reasons or particular times.
Absolutely beneficial. And so I typically break it up in three major categories. There are all different types. So there's, I'm sure somebody there, I'm sure we'll get some YouTube troll on there that will name other types of stretches.
You know who you are.
There's basically, active, static, and then dynamic or ballistic.
Yeah, those are the three most common.
Yeah, the three main categories, and then there's kind of subcategories off of that, but most all types of stretching, whether it's assisted or not, would fall under one of those three categories. So, and I know you said you were gonna cover the static.
Yeah, static is now when the average person thinks about stretching, static stretching is the image that comes to mind. And a static stretch, very simple. It's the one you probably learned in grade school and did in PE. And it's as simple as getting into a stretch and holding that stretch for a relatively long period of time, anywhere between 15, 30 seconds?
30 seconds and beyond, yeah.
Yeah, and there's even like a yin yoga will hold you in a static stretch for as long as a minute.
Yeah.
This type of stretching, we used to be taught, I don't know about you guys, but I was taught to do this before doing athletic event or running or working out. It's actually the wrong way
to do it, yeah.
In fact, static stretching before an athletic endeavor has been shown to increase the risk of injury because static stretching dampens the central nervous system, It dampens it and turns it off a little bit. So static stretch, I'll demonstrate a real easy one. Just your basic touch your toe type stretch. So I'd come down here, get down as low as I can, and just hold this stretch for 15 to 30 seconds. I can also do this seated if I was on the floor, and I could put one leg out and just come out and hold this stretch for long periods of time. Now what happens when I'm doing this, as I'm holding this stretch, the central nervous system eventually gets the message and starts to relax, and then the muscle relaxes and it lengthens. Now you want to keep in mind, the muscle itself doesn't change, the attachments don't change, the muscle doesn't.
You're not getting longer.
It's not really getting longer, it's just relaxing because I'm holding the stretch, and so it increases range of motion. Now the reason why you don't want to do this before you do a hard workout is because you don't want more range of motion without better tension, because then I just become unstable and I can hurt myself. This kind of stretch you use after your workout.
Right.
Unless you're trying to do correctional exercise, if I want a muscle to get out of the way, then I'll do it before the workout. An example would be if my chest is really tight and it pulls my shoulders forward and I'm trying to do a row and get my shoulders back and it's just in the way, then I might do a static stretch on the chest, get it to relax, then I can do my rows, shoulders come back easier.
Which brings you into, the beginning of your workout, and something that I do, and I definitely try and make sure that I use dynamic stretch to kind of prepare my body for movement. So.
And dynamic is really, that's the kind of stretching you want to do before your workout.
This is movement based, so it's Sal showing you different poses that you're going to try and get into and hold, and get your central nervous to respond accordingly to that. Now, as far as like going along the hamstrings, let's just start with like a punter kick, where I'm going to kick and I'm going to walk with this, and you'll see people doing this out before a game, and I'm just warming up my body, getting circulation and training my body to prepare for that type of a movement. So that's typically how I tend to place the timing of a dynamic stretch and put it more towards the beginning, so that way I can kind of get the movement. And so you also see too a lot of calisthenics and stuff like that, where I'm doing arm circles, and I'm just getting circulation, I'm getting my muscles more pliable, and I'm telling my central nervous system that this is the type of movement and response I'm going to need to get going into my workout.
I'm glad you said that, because you're not telling, when he's doing these punter kicks, he's not trying to get the hamstring to lengthen.
I'm not tensing up like necessarily.
No, he's telling the hamstring that you may get into this length while I'm doing this particular sport or activity, and to be ready and not tear or injure.
You're doing a ballistic movement and taking the muscle through full range of motion and getting that connectivity, which that brings us to the third type, which is kind of like an active stretch, which is a little less ballistic. So Justin talks about dynamic. You're kind of swinging his leg up there. So we'll stick with hamstrings, so this makes sense for everybody. Sal showed the static hamstring stretch. Justin showed kind of a ballistic or dynamic hamstring stretch. Now an active, I would do get in a wide stance. I'm gonna do my hamstrings here, and I'm just gonna come down. I'm gonna hold for 3 to 5 seconds, then I'm gonna come out of it. I'm gonna come down, I'm gonna hold for 3 to 5 seconds, and then I'm gonna come out of it. And really all I'm trying to do is increase blood flow, connectivity there, but I don't want to relax the entire body, which what you would do if you were to do a static, your body would start to relax, it releases. I want to stay connected there, but then I'm also not doing something really dynamic. Where dynamic and ballistic can be dangerous is if you have a client like, I would do an active stretch with a client that I have that's maybe older before I feel comfortable with them doing something ballistic and dynamic where I'm worried that they could have an injury. I don't want them to swing their leg up.
That alone will hurt somebody who's not
exactly
mobile.
Right. If I have a 70-year-old client who comes into me and it's the first time, I'm not going to take her on a ballistic leg swing just because I want to get her hamstrings kind of warmed up. I would do something more active where I just ask her to come down in that position. She's going to hold it for 3 to 5 seconds, then come out of it. And we eventually would progress to something more like what Justin was showing.
I think one of the keys with all these stretches is to have control of what you're doing. If you get into a stretch and you force it and you feel like you're not in control, you don't have good tension, you don't have good stability, that's where people can injure themselves. Now with static stretching, relaxing and breathing helps a lot, because remember, when I'm doing a static stretch, I want the central nervous system to relax. And the mistake I see a lot of people doing is they hold their breath. So they're getting the stretch and they'll hold their breath trying to force themselves. And all that's doing is telling the central nervous system to tighten up even more. Yoga teaches people to breathe through stretches for this particular reason right here.
And like we talk a lot about, frequency is always going to trump intensity. Same thing applies when you are talking about stretching. It's not about how intense you stretch. The frequency of your stretching is what's really going to improve.
Yeah, and so to take that step further, rather than doing 60 minutes of stretching dedicated once a week, you'll do better off doing 3 20-minute sessions during the week.
Absolutely.
Same total amount of time, it's just more frequent and the body responds better that way.